For better or worse, the world runs on oil, and extracting it isn't easy. That's why we have offshore oil rigs to get the job done on a large scale. These structures have to be massive in order to brave the powerful elements of nature. So, join me for today's video as we look through the top 15 largest offshore oil rigs on the planet. Number 15. Baldpate. Kicking off the list is the absolutely enormous Baldpate offshore compliant tower oil platform. Setting up shop near the coast of Louisiana, the Baldpate stands at 1,902 feet tall and is owned and operated by the Hess Corporation. This giant structure is a bit of history behind it, as it's the first freestanding compliant tower to be built following the Lena Platform, which was a guide-compliant tower. But beyond that, this offshore rig is the second tallest structure built in the water after the Petronius platform. It was specially designed and built by J. Ray McDermott Engineering in Texas to be more flexible than traditional truss towers like the Bullwinkle oil platform. And this particular design allows for the Baldpate oil platform to move up to 10 feet laterally during severe storm conditions. The compliant tower section jacket was fabricated by Acker Gulf Marine and weighs a total of 28,900 tons, which is far below the builder's original estimate of 50,000. I guess it's good to travel light. Something this big needed to be built in multiple sections, all of which were fabricated apart and assembled together when all parts reached their final destination. The lower 350 feet of the base account for nearly a third of the structure's weight, as it has a wider base which reduces to about 90 square feet as you make your way to the top. Then there's the legs themselves, which each are 12 feet in diameter at their widest and a steel thickness of 3.5 inches. It is a pretty amazing rig, and the combined height of the jacket and truss tower section of the Baldpate measure up to 671 feet, most of which is completely submerged underwater. Number 14. Bullwinkle. Bullwinkle may be the name of a certain moose from most people's childhoods, but it's also the name of one of the largest oil platforms in the world. Bullwinkle is a fixed steel oil platform installed in the Gulf of Mexico in 1988. And when you see something this big, you can't help but scratch your head and ask yourself how it got there, especially since it's in the middle of the ocean. At the end of the 1980s, Bullwinkle was the third tallest freestanding structure in the world, standing at 1,736 feet tall, with 1,352 below the waterline. And before it made its way to the Gulf, it took 3 years to build in Texas by Gulf Marine fabricators and cost about $500 million. But the hard part really began after the completion of Bullwinkle's jacket, when the contractors took on the job of transporting the 49,000-ton, 1,400-foot-tall structure from the construction yard over land and then over to water using a barge. The entire process took 5 days. Bullwinkle is the second tallest object to ever be moved from one location to another, and after all that work, it will be decommissioned by the end of its economic life, meaning it will likely have to be moved again. Number 13. Gullfax Sea Platform. The honor of being the heaviest man-made object to ever be moved goes to the Gullfax Sea Platform in the Norwegian North Sea. But what is it exactly? Well, Gullfax is an oil and gas field in the North Sea that consists of 3 production platforms, Gullfax A, B, and C. Gullfax C sits more than 700 feet below the ocean's surface and makes up for nearly half of the entire structure's height. Just to put that into perspective, it's 200 feet taller than the Eiffel Tower. But Gullfax C also has a total weight and displacement of nearly 1.5 million tons. The structure began its journey in Vats, a small village in Norway, and made its way by boat to Stord, but not before the concrete legs were lowered down under the cold water. When the Gullfax Sea station arrived, barges were used to slide it into concrete, with quite literally zero margin for error. But now it still needs to be moved out to sea, so from Stord it took 11 tons and 136,000 horsepower to get the ball rolling, and ever moved safely out to sea where she's been sitting ever since 1989. Number 12. The Lena Platform. I mentioned the Lena Platform earlier. This platform is still one of the largest offshore rigs in the world, except instead of standing erect above the waves, this one is laying at the bottom of the ocean. But don't worry, because this story is not a tragedy. Formerly owned by ExxonMobil, the Lena-compliant tower platform originally made its place in the world just 50 miles southeast of Grand Isle, Louisiana. Originally installed back in 1983 in 1,000 feet of water, the Lena Platform is the world's first cable-stabilized production platform in that area. The structure originally stood at 1,078 feet tall and weighed 27 tons. And with the decks and drilling rig added on, the Lena Platform measured 1,300 feet tall, which is a good 50 feet taller than the Empire State Building in New York City. This offshore rig certainly had a good run with a 25-year lifespan and generated all sorts of ridiculous revenue from oil and natural gas sales until the end of its days in 2016, and decommissioning began the next year. But just because the Lena Platform wasn't done drilling didn't mean that it couldn't serve another purpose. ExxonMobil hooked up with the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement to turn the compliant tower platform into an artificial reef as part of the Rigs to Reef program. And on July 3, 2020, the platform's jacket was toppled in place to create the new reef site in the Gulf of Mexico outer continental shelf. Now the Lena Platform is the tallest oil and gas platform in the Gulf of Mexico to become a deepwater reef, according to the Bureau. Number 11. Coelacanth Platform. Named after a rare order of fish once thought to be extinct, the Coelacanth Platform sits in the Gulf of Mexico and is one of the younger offshore oil rigs out there. This is the third tallest structure of its kind in the Gulf of Mexico, standing at 1,312 feet, making it as tall as some of the world's most famous skyscrapers. The platform sits in about 1,100 feet of water with a jacket structure just over 1,200 feet long and weighs 30,000 tons or 60 million pounds. At the base, the structure's main legs form corners of 330 by 330 square feet, which is enough to take over 2 American football fields side by side. Coelacanth's jacket tapers down that 45 by 100 feet rectangle just above the surface, where the 3-level deck mounts on the main corner legs, and 2 center false leg posts for support. But each level of these 3 decks is a whopping 105 by 224 feet, making for a total area of about 65,000 square feet for drilling and production operations. This big yellow platform is held in place by 14 piles driven through guides at the base of each main leg, with 3 piles on 2 legs and another 4 piles on each of the others, allowing the platform to withstand hurricane-force winds as well as the meanest waves and currents the ocean can throw at it. Each of the piles is about 108 inches in diameter, and it's driven by subsea hydraulic hammers 450 feet below the tough sea floor, securing the entire structure to the seabed. The jacket loading operation took less than 3 days and required that the jacket be pulled over a quarter mile before it reached its final position on the Hibernia launch barge, the largest in the world at 853 feet long. Number 10. Tambua Landana. Chilling and drilling off the coast of Angola is Chevron's Tambua Landana platform. Standing 1,554 feet high and weighing 76,000 tons, the Tambua Landana platform includes an integrated deck with production facilities and is supported by a 56,000-ton 4-legged casing pulling tool, or CPT. The CPT is one of the largest man-made structures in the world, and it's also fixed onto the seafloor by 12 foundation piles. This platform can accommodate 120 people at a time, and as well as 38 well slots and a capacity of 13,000 barrels per day of oil and another 210 million cubic feet of liquefied natural gas. So yeah, needless to say, the rig is pretty intense. The subsea system for the Tambua Landana field compromises 2 subsea manifolds. One manifold is a subsea collection center for production, and the second is for water injection. 2 export 14-inch diameter pipelines were installed to export gas and oil from the fields, and each runs for about 20 miles and are connected to the BBLT gas export pipeline through a subsea piggable Y and 570 feet of water. The Tambua Landana project began back in 2007, making it a younger addition to this list, and a total of 46 wells were drilled and tied back to its CPT. This project was designed to ensure zero gas flaring and zero discharge of produced water. Number 9. Pompano Platform. Special offshore oil fields called for a special kind of offshore rig, and that's where the Stone Energy's Pompano Platform comes in. Standing at 1,565 feet tall, it's an absolute force to be reckoned with in the Gulf of Mexico. This platform was one of the first deepwater projects in the area, and it remains a major production hub for the neighboring fields, including the ExxonMobil-operated Mica field, which is tied to the Pompano platform via 2 8-inch flow lines. The field on which it sits was first discovered in 1981 by Arco and Kerr-McGee, only to be reevaluated and deemed economical just 4 years later, and the first oil flowed in 1994. Now, Pompano sits inside 6 lease blocks about 120 miles southeast of New Orleans, in water depths ranging from 1,100 to 2,200 feet deep. British Petroleum would go on to install a 40-slot fixed platform the same year operations began, and Pompano's 10-well driverless subsea oil production template system was installed just 1 year later in Mississippi Canyon. Number 8. Benguela Belize Lobito Tamboco Platform. Simply known as the BBLT, this platform sits in a block off Angola and in the lower Congo Basin in 1,200 feet of water, covering 1,560 square miles. The entire development cost over $2 billion, with the CPT measuring 1,680 feet from the sea floor to the top of the derrick, making it the 5th tallest freestanding structure in the world. And just to put that in perspective, the BBLT platform is nearly 700 feet taller than the Eiffel Tower. The drilling rig alone cost about $120 million, and the CPT's integrated platform is capable of drilling down to 30,000 feet deep using an AC variable frequency drive. It's fitted with a mechanical pipe handling system installed in its hook-load derrick, which is equipped with 4,600 horsepower and draws work on top of a drive with 60,000 pounds of torque. The rig also has 3 2,200 horsepower mud pumps rated to 7,500 psi, with a total mud volume of nearly 200,000 gallons. The CPT's topside modules were lifted by Harima's semi-submersible crane vessel, Tialf, over a 5-week period. And when the 10,400-ton North module was installed, it represented Harima's largest installation using the Thief's anchorless dynamic positioning system. And seeing as how this is one big rig, the vessel's dual crane capacity provides for tandem lifts up to 14,000 tons. Number 7. Hibernia. Located in the North Atlantic, a good 196 miles east of Newfoundland in Canada, the Hibernia is a beefy 450,000-ton gravity-based structure that first brought up oil to the surface in November of 1999. Hibernia has a 345-foot caisson-built front with a high-strength concrete, reinforced steel rods, and pre-stressed tendons. This offshore oil rig can take about just anything Mother Nature can throw at it. The location means it's subject to an onslaught of extreme and obscene Arctic conditions, which is why the caisson is surrounded by an ice wall made from 16 concrete teeth. This structure was designed to withstand a collision with a 1-million-ton iceberg, which, believe it or not, is calculated to happen once every 500 years, and can even withstand a direct hit from the mythical 6-million-ton, 10,000-year iceberg. Within the gravity, the structure has the storage tanks for crude oil with a capacity of 1.3 million barrels of oil equivalent. 2 drill shafts, each with 32 drill slots, go down over 2 miles below sea level to reach the Hibernia reservoir, and further drilling activity has taken place in the Avalon field at a depth about 1.5 miles. Hibernia has produced over 1 billion barrels so far, with operation expected to continue for another 15 to 20 years. Topside facilities of the Hibernia consist of 5 supermodules, including a processing wellhead, mud, utilities, and accommodation for 185 people, plus 7 topside-mounted structures including a helideck, flare boom, pipe rack, main and auxiliary lifeboat stations, and 2 drilling modules. Number 6. Stones. With such an ominous name, you can expect an enormous oil rig. Stones is a humble project from Shell that uses floating production storage and offloading facilities operating the U.S. Gulf of Mexico, about 200 miles off the coast of New Orleans. It's the deepest operating project, reaching a depth of 9,500 feet below sea level. The Floating Production Storage and Offloading, or FPOS, named Turritella, is a converted Suezmax tanker, secured in place by using buoyant turret mooring technology, connected to a subsea infrastructure pumping oil and gas from 8 production wells. The disconnectable buoy-equipped turret allows the vessel to turn with the wind, or, in heavy storm or hurricane, disconnect completely from the well so the vessel can sail to safer waters. Despite being one of the world's deepest offshore structures, steel lazy wave risers link the subsea system to the buoyant turret mooring, which is a flexible pipe with additional buoyancy, creating an arched bend between the seafloor and the surface to absorb the motion of the FPSO and to boost production performance at extreme depths. Stones is the first project in the world to use a disconnectable buoy configured with these steel lazy wave risers, demonstrating the unique requirements of the ultra-deep area. It's also the first FPSO to be used in the Gulf of Mexico. But the impressive stats don't stop there, because at peak production, Stones will produce an estimated 50,000 barrels of oil per day, and it's estimated to hold more than 2 million barrels a day. Number 5. Petronius. Expecto Petronius. The Petronius platform-compliant pile tower design has been called one of the tallest freestanding structures in the world, surpassed only by the Burj Khalifa skyscraper. It stands at 2,001 feet above the seabed, although only 246 feet of that is actually above water. Think of this rig like an iceberg, but sheer size aside, the Petronius is an incredibly interesting offshore platform because the tower is exceptionally flexible, so it can sway with the forces of the ocean rather than withstand them. It's got a mooring system based on 12 piles, 3 at each corner leg, which extends 450 feet through the mud line into the seabed. The Petronius has a multiple deck topside, measuring 210 feet by 140 feet across and 60 feet high. It includes a 4,000-ton north module and a slightly lighter south module, and the entire structure weighs an enormous 43,000 tons. Petronius's topsides support a full drilling rig spread of 17 wells, including 10 producing wells and 7 water injection wells, and the tower can accommodate 21 well slots and has the capacity to handle 60,000 barrels a day. Number 4. Olympus Mars B. The next entry on our list is absolutely ridiculous. Named after the Greek mountain of myth, the Olympus is a mammoth platform that operates within the Mars B field, the first deepwater project in the Gulf of Mexico to expand an existing oil and gas field with new infrastructure. The original Mars field was discovered in 1989 and began production in 1996, but as the size of the oil field was realized to be larger, further infrastructure was built to get more oil from a wider area. The development of Mars B extended the life of the Mars field to at least 2050, and this platform is certainly putting in the work because to date over 700 million barrels have been produced from this field. Olympus took over the production of Mars B in 2014, operating at a water depth of around 3,100 feet and producing about 100,000 barrels of oil a day. The platform weighs over 120,000 tons, making it heavier than 300 Boeing 747s. It's 406 feet tall from the base of the hull to the top of the derrick, with a combined deck area of 340,000 square feet. This thing is larger than the Superdome. Number 3. The Troll A. The Troll A platform is a con-deep gravity-based structure offshore natural gas platform in the Troll gas fields of Norway. The structure was built in 1996 out of reinforced concrete, and despite its purpose, it has a more interesting claim to fame. As of 2014, it's the tallest man-made structure to ever be transported to another location, and make no mistake, getting this thing from point A to point B was no easy feat. The Troll A platform stands over 1,500 feet tall and weighs well over 1,000,000 tons, with its 4 concrete legs extending close to 1,000 feet below sea level. So when you move something that big, there is no possible way to do so discreetly. Like much of the structure itself, the transport operation was such a big event that it was televised, and millions of people watched the engineers and contractors drop these hollow concrete legs into the ocean and filled them with water to let them sink to the floor, then settle with their 130-foot-tall vacuum anchors. This gives a whole new definition to the term sea legs. But once the dust had settled, or sank in this case, engineers were able to float the massive platform over to the legs and attach everything together. It was a pretty amazing process, especially since the platform itself is so big that it takes close to 10 minutes to walk from one end to the other. Number 2. Perdido. The penultimate entry on this list is the deepest oil platform in the world. The Perdido is moored in a whopping 8,000 feet of water and produces oil and gas from depths between 7,500 and 9,500 feet. There's a lot going on here. It's located in the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. The Perdido acts as the hub for 3 fields: Great White, Tobago, and Silvertip. 22 oil wells are connected to a 27-mile network of pipelines on the ocean floor between them. All in all, it has the capacity to handle easily 100,000 barrels of oil a day and 200 million cubic feet of natural gas. The Perdido was constructed in Pori, Finland by the project management company Technip, only to be transported across 8,200 miles 5 months before making it to Texas in 2008. Computer-guided lasers marked out the measurements to ensure precision during construction, with a major challenge being to ensure the build was optimized for temperature change from Finland to the Gulf. The cylinder spar measures 555 feet and is moored securely to the seafloor. The hull is nearly 875 feet tall and weighs 22,000 tons. Above the spar are 3 topsides containing processing units, a drilling rig, and living quarters. Together, they weigh 9,500 tons and are manned by 172 workers. Number 1. Berkut. Weighing over 200,000 tons with a stronghold 115 feet deep into the seabed, the Berkut oil platform is the largest in the world. Located in the Sakhalin-1 oil field off the Russian Pacific coast, Berkut is subjected to subarctic conditions, and so it's especially constructed to withstand the most extreme conditions. It can withstand seismic shocks, waves up to 52 feet tall, and sea ice as thick as 6.5 feet. It has its own autonomous power supply and can keep working at temperatures as low as -44 degrees Celsius. Berkut is built on a gravity-based structure fixed to the seabed at a depth of 115 feet. And construction of this structure alone required 170,000 cubic feet of concrete and 27,000 tons of steel reinforcing bar. The top side alone is 345 feet long and about 200 feet wide, and 470 feet high, which is as tall as a 50-story building. Transporting and installing it on the GBS in 2014 was a feat in its own right, and doing so required both groundbreaking and record-breaking methods. The Berkut is built to extract 4.5 million tons of oil each year from an oil field with an expected capacity of 64 million tons. Costing $12 billion, the platform was financed by the Sakhalin-1 consortium, made up of oil companies from USA, Russia, Japan, and India.
Watch our binge-watching playlist if you'd like to watch all of our most popular top 15 videos. Grab a drink, grab a snack, and get ready to binge.